You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died.
Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have another amazing guest. You might have seen her last year when she performed in The Music Man in the Winter Garden Theater, or you will soon see her in the Ensemble of SPAMALOT, which is going to be at the St. James Theater. But before that, she was Victoria in a swing in the 2016 Broadway Revival of CATS. So welcome, Maria Briggs, and thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Excited to have you on. I know we've chatted for a while and have never been able to connect on time.
I feel like at least a year.
And
right?
Here we are. Yeah, I had the notes written. We're ready to go. It was like during The Music Man, I think.
Oh my gosh. And of course, like when COVID was at its peak. And so I was super busy over there. And yeah.
Well, and here we are. We're now, we've made it. We're recording and we get to hear your amazing story. And so let's start at the beginning. I always love hearing, when was the first time you were introduced to CATS? Was it the 1998 movie or was it seeing it?
That's a great question. Because actually my last semester, I should say, at AMDA, I saw that there was like the CATS tour going out or that they were having auditions for it. And I had seen like snippets of CATS on like PBS pop up and here and there, but I had never seen it. And I was in calls for the audition and I was getting callbacks. And it's actually kind of funny because I was in for Rumple teaser and cover Victoria for that time. And I got to like final callbacks and I was like, I should maybe watch this because I don't know what I'm auditioning for. And I will say I kind of got to like Mungo and Rump and then I don't even think I finished it
off.
then.
Oh no.
I will say I was in school at the time, so I was like, okay, got
you're
the
busy.
gist.
Yeah,
I gotta
really
go to
busy.
bed.
Yeah.
And I did end up booking it. And I told one of my teachers at school, and I was so happy and elated. And he had done the other version on Broadway. And he was like, don't do it. It'll be your first job and your last job. I was like, what? He's like, it's going to be a bus and truck tour. You don't want to sleep, wake up that day and go do CATS. So I ended up not even doing the tour. I ended up getting Radio City instead. So this was the next time it came into my life. And I was so sad because I was actually out of town doing another show when they had the original auditions. And so I was the first group to go and audition, or I guess I was like the first replacement or vacation swing, once the Broadway opened. So
you, that's a lot. There's a lot there. You got you booked the fifth tour, I think it would have been.
I think so.
Julian Lynn choreography towards the end of its time too, because it ran for like 10, 15 years. It was the non-equity tour. And you had a teacher talk you out of it.
I did.
Wow. Did you make the teacher come in 2016 where you're like, hey.
Okay. So it was actually kind of great because he did get to come because they had like this show for alumni to come and see it. So he was there during that time.
So the teacher did it. He did
it. Yeah, he did it. I believe he did it on Broadway, and I believe he was a Misto.
Okay.
I need to double check, but I don't know if I should reveal his name or
not. Let's not reveal his name as he has talked you out of joining the cast, which means he either loved it or knew, hey, the tour is a challenge. Like that is a very difficult schedule and it's a very challenging show to do. And so, I as I've heard more, I'm like, God, this sounds
it's
hard.
A lot. And that's why we have a union to help make it safer and better.
Yeah.
I should add, I completely lied. My very, very first experience with CATS, I was taking a master class from someone who had done it on Broadway as well. And we actually learned the naming of cats. And I was like, what is this? I love this. I get to be a cat. And I didn't even realize how much I love cats, but I was living my life. And that's all I knew of cats.
Okay. When was that? How old were you then?
I think maybe just getting into high school.
Okay.
Because I didn't really know about musical theater either until high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you weren't like the obsessed as a 5 and 6-year-old watching the VHS and burning through it.
No, not at all. I grew up dancing my whole life. And see, I was more obsessed with Singing in the Rain. That was like the one I kept watching over and over and over again. And I actually worked with Michael Gruber, who was Monkestrap.
Yeah.
That version.
Wow.
So, and I got to do Singing in the Rain with him, actually.
Wow.
He was Don Lockwood. So it's kind of neat.
Okay. So you book it, you book it in college and say no. And then you go do all kinds of other stuff. And then you come back and you are now auditioning. So I want to hear a little bit because that's a piece I wouldn't have thought about. You now are auditioning for Andy's version of the show. How did the auditions differ? Like, did you do different choreography, different dance in the audition? Because it's similar. There's like a lot of, he didn't stray completely from Jillian Lynn's choreography, but he did put his own spin on it. So did you notice, like, was that something you noticed when you went to the audition for the Broadway show?
Yeah. So it's actually interesting because they used the same section to audition with, like
interesting.
That one section of the ball. So I kind of like knew the beginning, but then all of a sudden it changed and I was like, oh, okay. So we're doing a mix of it all. And then for my Broadway audition, it was actually co-ed. And so we all did that. Then they split us up into like who they think would be Victoria, who they think would be Misto. And then we did the Victorious, we didn't even do the full Victoria solo, I don't think. I think we literally just did a develope and it was like, can you do it? Go into the splits, done.
Yeah.
And actually from there, I didn't hear, I think I went back within like 2 weeks or something to sing. And it was just my own song and then a dressing of cats. And then maybe I did Syllabub. I'm not quite sure. And then a month went by and I was like, I guess I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was in for another audition. I was in final callbacks for another show. And I had seen that my agent called and I was like, in between dancing and singing, do I want to get this right now or do I want to stay focused? But I had enough time and I was like, okay, let me check my phone. So I got another room and he was like, this audition's not going to work out and this show isn't going to work out because you're going to make your Broadway debut.
Wow. So you're in the middle of an audition?
I was in the middle of an audition.
Wow.
I was like, okay, great. This is amazing. I'm going to go sing now.
Yeah. You didn't walk out? You still finished the audition?
I finished the audition.
Right? Okay.
And I guess the one difference with when I was auditioning for the tour, I was in like showcase at the time for school. And so I was in these final callbacks and I got the Mungo Rump song. And oh my God, that time signature. And I was like, I don't know how to count this. Like, how do you do 5? I don't, blah. And so at AMDA, we actually have what we call tapings. And you can go in and you can work with an accompanist. And so I stayed outside the door all day with this accompanist. And I was like, help me count this. Help me count this. And spent all night. And I was like, I got the song. So I was doing my audition and I did like the whole beginning of the section. Then we were going into the 5/4 section and I was like, here we go. And I started singing it and they were like, wait, you know this part? And I was like, yeah. Gave me the music. And they're like, great, let's give it a try. And I think maybe that's how I got it. It's just knew that part, maybe. I don't know.
So you had learned it for this was the second audition.
That was for the tour.
For the tour. Okay. So that was
the non-union.
So you learned it. And then when you come in again later, you're like, of course I got this. I had already booked it once.
Well, sorry. So the tour was saying, they were like, wait, you know this section? Because I guess they normally cut after that first part. But yeah. And then when I was auditioning for Broadway, I actually didn't have to do it, which in the Broadway version, they changed the time signature in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
To make it a little easier.
So then you're going to make your Broadway debut. I want to go before we get to that first show. I love hearing how Cats is explained to you. Because at this point, you're not the super fan who watched the VHS through you hadn't even made it to Act 2 the first time you watched it.
Exactly.
So what was that like first moment like where you're like, all right, let's I'm hearing the story. I'm following through. And I think this is was this Victoria or as a swing at this point?
This was a swing at that point.
So you're having to learn 6 different cats' stories and dances and songs and saging and everything else. Tell me about that experience.
Well, it actually was the best because my first rehearsal, it was just myself, and it was at Ripley Greer. It's like in the 50s. I can't remember what street it was, but I was like, I didn't even know there was a Ripley Greer there, which is like a studio that a lot of people audition at. And I go up the stairs, and who do I see? Claire Camp, who is like the master of cats. So honestly, I had the best way to be introduced to this show because she's so obsessed with it and loves it. And it was absolutely perfect. And I think actually when I started, I didn't start with 6 cats. I think it might have even been 3 or something. And my first cat was Tantomile because, how do we say it? I guess Tantomile kind of does the most consistently in the show. So it's like,
from a dancing perspective, right?
From a dancing perspective, yeah. And again, especially being with a partner where it's like, if we can get this solid. And also, the person who played that track also covered Victoria. So it's like, okay, we have someone who can, like, if I learn this cat, then we make her more available for something else. And so, yeah.
So you walk in, it was a solo rehearsal, but you see Claire, who's going to just give you the full rundown.
The full rundown of cats.
Yeah.
And I think that's how it started, where she was like, oh my gosh, well, I love this show so much. You're absolutely perfect for it. You fit these cats perfectly. I definitely see you as Tantomile and Vic and all these cats.
I can only imagine having Claire was one of the most entertaining episodes I have ever recorded for this podcast by a mile. She is so much fun, and she is passionate about cats and knows it in and out, and it is fun to hear that. So I can only, she's also like, you can feel the energy of her fandom of it. So I'm sure you got there not knowing much, and then it's like, oh, I got to be in if she's all the way in on this.
Oh yeah, it was definitely like, I'm taking you under my wing. And the cool part too is that she knows the original choreography as well. So it was like, oh, she could kind of say like, this is original, this is Andy's, this is where we're mixing, and so it was really neat.
So was she teaching? Like, what was that first day like? Like, was it just you and her, or was it a group, or how was that setting?
So it's just Claire, myself, and accompanist.
Wow.
That's it. And so it's the weirdest thing too, because again, I'm like, oh my God, Broadway's happening. And then you're like, wait, it's kind of the same thing I do everywhere, except just on this certain street.
Yeah.
And, so we started with the opening, and we just started doing some of the choreography. And so Claire and I have worked a few other times now since then. We, of course, got to talk more about it. And I was so adamant because it was like, it's my Broadway debut. I got to be on top of everything. So I worked on that choreography like all night. I looked at the lyrics, and I was like, I got to be off a book next day. And sure enough, like while I was there, I was like doing it full song, full dance, just myself in a room. The weirdest
you
sensation.
3 of you in a room doing all parts.
Doing cats.
Yeah. Like crawling around and doing,
exactly.
I can, that's got to be a sight for anybody that like looks in the window, type of thing of like, what is this group doing here right now?
Well, and there was one day, I think I just learned a whole nother cat or something, and we had 2 other people join us because of an emergency situation. And Kim Craven, who is our resident choreographer, she had to take the 2 new girls into another room, and she was like, since you know the show, you're at like a different pace than them. How about you just go run it? So again, this was just me and the accompanist in one room, and I'm doing all of Cats.
The whole show.
By myself, the whole show. So silly.
Wow. That is, again, you got the whole junkyard, and you're just you by yourself running the show from start to finish.
Yep.
Wow.
Dedication.
Yeah. I mean,
self-discipline.
behind the scenes of Broadway.
Oh my gosh.
So I wanted to fast forward though to the other part of this. So like you obviously have to learn the singing, the dancing, and whether it's 3 or 6 cats or even 1 cat, you've got to learn the show.
Yeah.
But you also have got to learn their personalities.
Yes.
So tell me, was Claire your teacher there too? Because I mean, she could definitely do it. Or what was the like, here's what you need to know about the backstory of these characters?
It was kind of a mix. I would say I spent most time with like Claire and Kim.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would definitely spend time with Corey as well. But it was tricky because our dance captains were on a lot. So I do think when I started going further into rehearsal, it kind of just became Kim, just because she was actually available.
Yeah.
So I think more of the backstory started to come from her. But if I had any questions, Claire was there to answer.
So when you're learning this part, what was when you're learning the story as someone who didn't watch it a million times?
Yeah.
What was your, was there an aha moment or like a, wow, I did not catch that when I watched the first act on VHS?
I mean, I think the fact that there isn't much of a story.
Yeah.
I would definitely say was an aha moment where when I saw the whole show together, it was like, okay, wait, but what?
Yeah.
What happened? But then there was just the appreciation of like, there's just no other show that has this amount of like singing and dancing and acting because you have to be a cat.
Yeah. So you didn't go like, this is the part that, I mean, this is what I spend all the time thinking about. As someone who can't sing and dance, if you stuck me in that room, I'd be like, sure, do your thing. Like I need to be Grisabella and be on stage for like 15 minutes only.
Right.
But I keep thinking, especially as a swing, which is a fascinating in any role, an important part and just a really challenging thing in any role. Then I think about cats where it's like, this is extremely different personality.
Yeah.
So when you go on as Tantomile versus Victoria,
right. Yes.
They're very different. And so like, do you think about I have to have this type of feeling today versus this type of feeling today? And how much of your own story did you write into those characters?
Absolutely. So I think when it came to rehearsals, I was definitely told like, okay, these are the younger cats. So like Victoria, Syllabub, Electra, those are younger.
Mm-hmm.
Tantomile's older and she has the what's the word? They can like sink into things and they have it's
like telepathic almost.
Telepathic. Thank you. And, but then like when I got Jenny Anydots, it was like, oh, she's older and more grounded. And so that absolutely, first of all, it completely changes your body language. So like with the cats, the kittens definitely felt a little more natural to me since I do have like that bubbliness behind it. But then like with Tantomile, it was like, okay, sink in, ground. And it's almost like a smoother sort of movement as well, where like the kittens are a little like frantic and energetic.
Yeah.
So
it's so interesting because you're thinking about it from the like movement and dancing and how you like do this. And I'm thinking going like, well, what about their like relationships with the story? Like, do they dance with this cat or do they do that? Or do they leave here? Or, are they, especially, I don't think you didn't do Demeter, but I'm like, well, that's a backstory.
She's got a backstory.
She's got a story, like how do you convey that to an audience where, I don't want to guess a percentage, but like a good chunk of that audience has no idea that's happening.
And I think part of that too is just like communication with actors as well. Like you set up that backstory of like, oh, okay, we're all the kittens. And you also kind of see how it's staged. So it's like the kittens tend to be together often.
Yeah.
So they definitely have that relationship and clearly in like the stature and how Munkustrap is placed on stage, you clearly, he is like a leader.
Yeah.
In Deuteronomy, we have like these huge grand entrance. And I think we mentioned in the lyrics that he's like our leader as well.
Yep.
So I do think like the movement of how it's the staging of it all. Like that's where the choreography, that's why it's so important. And that's how you like structure pieces, especially because I think what's neat about Cats is that you honestly don't even need to know English to love it. Which we actually had a lot of tourists come to the show too, or non-English speakers come see the show because even English speakers are like, what did I just see? But you have the appreciation because you know that there's like this story happening, even if you don't know exactly what's going on, you know that something important is happening.
That was my first experience. Is I was at it was before you were on it, but your production, second to last preview. Yeah. I was by myself. Had just moved to the city, and so I was definitely overwhelmed in general. Like I moved from Indiana, so it's like it's a culture shock in itself.
Was this your first musical?
No, so I've been a lot growing up, but tours in Indiana, and then a little bit on Broadway as like we visited. Like my family would go to like a sporting event and a Broadway show when we visited New York.
Oh, okay.
Like that was kind of how we did our trips. So it wasn't the first time I'd been on Broadway. It wasn't the first time, but first time I'd seen Cats. And really the first time I'd been like, oh, I'm going to just walk to the theater and kind of like experience this. And I did notice that there was one pre-show, the majority of the conversations happening around me were actually not in English. So that kind of stood out of a lot of tourists around me seeing this show. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like I had seen some other things the previous couple of years. I'm like, oh, that's might be challenging. I'm like, nope, not in Cats.
Not in Cats.
It's not needed. But now I know too much, where now I'm like, I've watched it since. I'm like, well, hold on. That's this like subplot happening here. Behind the scenes where I'm like, oh, these two might be dating, or like, which you don't notice the first time you see it.
Well, and isn't it neat too that like we painted the whole outside of the Neil Simon Theater black. So even your first entrance into the theater is different than what it normally would be.
Yeah.
Like they change. It's so neat. Like from the second you're walking in, or I guess I should say the second you're in line, you're starting the experience from there.
Well, and I had gotten the tickets from a friend who does production and stage management, all that design. And so I was kind of like more in tune to that than I think I would normally have been. And you walk in and you are in a junket.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, oh, wow, this is a lot to take in. Like, this is really cool. And I was kind of experiencing that. Then no one warned me about green eyes. So I wasn't ready for that. And so I had a whirlwind of an experience for 2.5 hours that I didn't know how to process at the time.
It's honestly, Green Eyes was one of my favorite moments too, especially as Rumpelteazer, because you got to go up into the mezzanine and there was kind of like it's really a wall, but there was a step that you could kind of hide underneath and then pop up and scare the audience.
Like behind the last row, right?
Yeah. It was so awesome.
So you might have been the one that did that to me.
Probably.
So the second time I saw the show, my friend was visiting and was like, really wanted to see it. And I think we ended up in the last row of the mezzanine.
Oh, nice.
And I remember being like, just don't buy us aisle tickets.
Right.
I was like, I don't want to be on the aisle. I don't need a cat jumping out of my face. Like, even if I know it's coming, I don't need it. And I was like, okay, I sat down, like, we're good. Like, we're not on the aisle. We're in the middle of this row. And then sure enough, someone jumped up behind me over that ledge. And I was like, oh my God.
We're always there.
Everywhere in that theater. That's fun.
I should say too, because oh God, the whole beginning is like, I never seen Cats and I'm obsessed with it now as well. I am with the Cats fandom. I am in it. I love it. It's one of my favorite shows I've ever done.
Claire would be so happy to hear you say that.
Absolutely.
I'm sure she's like slowly trying to convert the world like I am, one person at a time.
Well, the funny part is we just did a chorus line together and you were like, wait, so who's Sheila? What cat is Sheila? Coming up with that stuff.
I have never seen a chorus line still to this day. And but I've heard a chorus line has some elements of the way I would want Cats. Like you pick, like who's gonna get in the show? Let's pick who's gonna get picked as the Heaviside Layer.
Absolutely. There's so many similarities.
We're gonna take a quick break and then we'll be back for more of The Wrong Cat Died.
I'm gonna make you do the Music Man characters with me as Cats. So
oh no.
So we can, and I have not thought about this ahead of time. I'm gonna pull it up live, and I have seen the Music Man. I saw it in your last week, I believe, here in New York, and then it was the one show I think my sister performed in as a kid growing up. So I was like, oh, I know a lot of these songs. Why do I know a lot of these songs? It was because of that.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go through because it's Claire's party trick. She told me she just would tell
Oh
everybody
my
which cat they would
gosh.
be.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
love combining shows. I think it's really fun to think about the personalities.
I'm
But
ready.
I want to, before we get there, I want to hear a little bit about the very first time. It's Broadway debut.
Oh,
Very
my
first time
gosh.
on
Yes.
stage, like performing.
Oh, I will never forget it. So it was with Tantomile, and it was with my swing buddy, Tanner. And so we had been rehearsing as the twins for a while. And that's also why we actually did a swing out for my debut. So we knew it was happening. We could prepare for it. I could invite friends to come
Yeah.
that day. And I just remember being like backstage and like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And the twins enter in like a crouched position on their toes. And we enter from stage left and we run on and then we roll. And I was like, and then they pop their heads up and I was like, I'm on Broadway. I'm on Broadway. And, but then of course I had to like completely zone out then right
Yeah.
after that. Cause it was like, okay, I have a job to do now. And I do remember someone in the cast telling me like, take a moment during the show to like really settle in and just look out and see where you are. And
Yeah.
I just remember during bows looking out and being like, oh my God, I'm here. I'm
Yeah.
on Broadway. But I just think it's so funny that my first Broadway entrance was rolling on stage.
Yes. Rolling on in with full paw, probably.
Full paw.
Yeah.
Well, and I always thought too, like auditioning when I first started auditioning, I was like, gosh, that girl's been on Broadway. Look at those heels that she's wearing. Oh, I can't wait till I get my first pair of Broadway heels. And nope, it's a
Nope.
good old jazz shoe.
Yeah.
Painted with fur.
Yeah. Wow.
And I wear them so proudly.
That is amazing. And then tell me a little bit about you. So then you go full time on for Victoria.
Right. So I swung for a long time. And then there was a period between our original Victoria and then our replacement Victoria. And so I got to take over the role for a bit. And so I guess you could technically say I was the second replacement for
Mhm.
Victoria. And then once the new replacement came in, then I went back to swinging. But I don't know if you know this. And I don't know if it's ever been done before. So do you know what split tracks are?
Mm-hmm.
So I did a split track of Rumpelteazer and Victoria.
How?
Yeah. So, because to me, I feel like those are two of the like heaviest dancing tracks. at
Yeah.
least for the female cats. And oh my gosh, we were down so many people at this time, and we didn't have any other covers for Victoria and Rumpelteazer. And so I definitely had to do Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
And then Francesca Grinnell, she was supposed to go on for Rumpelteazer, but she had no voice. She felt completely fine, but could not speak. And I was in my dressing room painting my face, and my stage manager comes into the room and he's like, oh, sorry. And downstairs, Fran is trying to run the vocals with the music director.
Mm-hmm.
Stage manager comes in. He's like, okay, I think we're doing a singing in the rain moment. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I think Fran is going to do Rumpelteazer and you're going to sing it off stage. I was like, what? How is this going to work? And so, because that, especially with that number, is like you both look at each other, you take
Yeah.
cues off of each other. So he then gets a call basically saying like she can't sing. So then my stage manager says, what's that split track you had in mind? I was like, okay. So this is how I got my assistant dance captain credit. It was for one day. So basically I started as Victoria. Francesca was dressed as Rumpelteazer. We did the whole opening and everything. Then when there's the first scare, we exited. And then I kept the white face of Victoria, put on the Rumpelteazer wig, put on the Rumpelteazer unitard, over my white unitard and then put like the chaps for the feature.
Mm-hmm.
So I had basically 3 unitards on at this point and did the number. And then when they go up to the top of the boot and it goes into slow motion, I exited. Francesca came on. I ran around upstage, stripped off the rumple teaser, and then made it just in time as Victoria to run off stage, dive to go greet old Deuteronomy. And it was one of the craziest experiences ever.
So this is just one performance.
It ended up being for 2.
Two performances. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to follow this. Wait, so you basically did Victoria until the
feature.
duet, right?
Yes.
Like the duet of Mungo, Jerry, and Rumple Teaser. And then you're in full. I mean, I guess that's similar enough, right? Like it's not so far off. If you put on did you put the collar on and everything?
Exactly. Yep.
And you went and did the cartwheels and all.
I did it all.
Sang back and forth. And then the minute you exited, you went right back to Victoria.
To the white cat. Yep.
And then, so there was someone else was still doing all the other, like the ball was danced as Rumple Teaser with somebody else.
Correct. So Francesca was basically the body of Rumple Teaser for the whole show, except for the feature. And then Rumple Teaser sings like the railway cat for Skimbleshanks. But I just did that as Victoria.
Yeah. Wow.
Crazy. And the nuts part about this is that, so we had 2 shows Saturday, 2 shows Sunday. So I did that. What did we call it? I think we called it like Rumpletoria.
Rumpletoria.
So I did that for the matinee. And then one girl was able to come back. And I think I did like Victoria that night. And then the next day I had to do the Rumpletoria split for the matinee. And then another girl came back and then I did like Rumple Teaser that night. So it was just such a like.
So you did Victoria, Rumpletoria, like in the 4 shows, you did each character once and then both of them
and
twice.
this split, yeah. Which of course I was probably like Tantomile for the rest of that week.
Yeah. That is the part of, I mean, swinging in general. It's like, I'm just like, I can't even fathom that. Like, Cats has the part of, for me, when I didn't know much about swings. I didn't know, like, I knew nothing about musical theater besides as a spectator.
Yeah.
And so when I learned about it, I was like, how do you do Bomb Then Demeter back-to-back nights where you're doing the same thing almost, but you have opposite lines and you know, side by side.
Exactly.
I was like, I'd kick somebody. Like I'd be in the wrong of the two, you know, like that is a skill that is so hard to fathom.
Is. I will say though, I loved swinging Cats so much because no matter who I was on for, you got a feature, which was really neat. Because sometimes as a swing, because you cover the ensemble. So sometimes the ensemble isn't as featured as what Cats is. And so it was like, oh, okay, I'm the ballet cat tonight. Oh, now I'm the tapping cat. Oh, now I'm belting. Like it was so cool to get to use all of my skills in so many different ways. And actually, so after the Broadway production closed, the tour was going out and they actually offered me Victoria. And I was like, you know, I'd rather swing. And they were like, what? I was like, yeah, I kind of like doing different things every night. And but then I ended up booking Anastasia that day anyways. So
you're just not meant for this tour.
I guess not.
They're gonna be tour, because that was tour 6 pre-COVID. It's still called tour 6. You're gonna be on tour 7. You're gonna book it and you're gonna be like, nah, I'm good. Like this is this is just gonna be your future anytime it goes on tour.
Get the tour and not do it.
That is really.
I can only
funny.
share it on Broadway, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, I wanted to let's have some fun and do some Music Man. So you're in the Winter Garden, which I think is also super cool, right? So like, did that piece, like, because that is, I still make a joke every time I walk by the Winter Garden. I take a picture of whatever the marquee is, covered up and write Cats on it. I've done it. I've posted on social media. I've done it probably 15 times at this point.
Oh yeah.
Did you like think about that at all? Like now that you are the Cats fan and you're getting to perform on the Winter Garden stage?
Of course. Oh my God, to know, like, well, first of all, so many legends like got to perform there, but the Cats was there. And it was cool too, because even some of the stagehands had done that run. So it was like neat to get to talk to them. And But I remember, so if you're, well, how do you say it? It's stage right, house left.
Okay.
If you're going from backstage to the audience, there's kind of like a separate staircase that leads you there. And I remember the first time taking it, I was like, oh my God, this is how the cats prepared for Green Eyes. This is how they got out. This is like
Well, I thought you were going to say this is the heaviside layer. Like this is the nook in the attic that you...
Oh, I wish I got to go up there. But yeah, no, just this staircase is how you get from backstage to the audience, basically. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is how they did Green Eyes.
I love it. All right. So I love doing this exact, I guess we'll call it the Claire Camp game here, which is just let's figure out which performer, which actors, which cat. So I have to think through because I have, again, Music Man is not my forte. So you're going to have to lean in here. But let's start with, I'm going to just go in order of what I see on the Wikipedia page. So first one is going to be Harold Hill.
Oh, Harold Hill is definitely Monkestrap.
Monkestrap.
Oh, yeah.
Even as the kind of con man-ish version of it, like he's definitely the...
Okay. I don't know if I need to bring this up now, but I had some questions for you actually.
Okay.
About with cats. Cause what if they thought the leaders, so like Old Deuteronomy, Monkestrap are on this, they get it. What if they know that the heaviside layer, what if it's not as good as what they are telling everybody?
I mean, yeah, I have had a Old Deuteronomy who came on and said, what if this is my ploy to just be a serial killer?
Yes.
So yeah,
I thought that for a second because I was like, what if they're just like, you know what? We've had enough of this cat. Let's just send them to the heaviside layer.
There's been there's been some arguments of like, this is the last question. Like we're jumping ahead here and like, how are we making our choice?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess the question is like, is it a reward? Is it
right?
An actual thing? Is it just to be like, are they being reborn? Do they have to have another life?
Yeah.
So,
well, because doesn't Monkestrap say something like that? Like in the invitation where he's like, to find a new Jellicle life or something like that. Like, so some of the cats who are there now, have they already been reincarnated?
Well, you would assume, I always assume that they have 9 lives. And so it's like, all cats have 9 lives. So if and this is where one of the very first episodes I ever did was your Gus, Christopher Gurr. And Gus is the number one non-Grisabella answer. And a lot of people argue for Gus. And one thing that he said, and I still firmly believe it's just him trying to sell himself on it, why he didn't get picked, is he didn't think he had another life to live. So he thought if I got picked, I might not come back. Whereas, which I'm like, yeah, great. That's you just trying to, not be picked.
Justify.
You're justifying your own thing here. But like that is a question of like, are they reborn? Or there's now Baby Grizz dances some of the opening number. Is that foreshadowing for Grisabella? That's one of my theories. I think there's a Ghost of Cat's Past possibility.
Well, and if Victoria's a kitten, maybe she was recently reborn.
Was she last year's choice? Yeah.
Or did she have some sort of connection with Grisabella before? Like, is that why she's able to connect with her at the end?
I think the real question I have for you is, was this ever discussed with your cast? Like, did you ever think about these things? Besides Claire, because I know Claire probably thinks about them all times.
I think to some point we did, but I think it just got to a point where everybody was exhausted. That was like, okay, let's get through the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. We'll come back to, I'll answer whatever questions you have from my perspective. So I think with Harold Hill, I was thinking some combination of Tugger with the very suave in there, but also McCavity is like the kind of...
I don't think he's a McCavity.
Not bad quite enough. Okay.
Not bad enough. Yeah.
Okay, what about, who was Sutton Foster?
She was Marian the librarian.
Marian the librarian. Okay, who do you have there?
Oh, I didn't even think about maybe like a Jenny. Oh, not Jenny, Jelly.
Jelly, I kind of thought it was Jelly or Jenny. Kind of, like the very motherly, taking care of everybody character.
Well, and I think it depends on how people play Marian, because Sutton had a little bit more quirkiness, so maybe a little more Jenny. But I think some others might lean more towards a Jelly, depending on how they play it.
What about her son?
Oh, Winthrop.
Yeah,
Winthrop.
Oh my
gosh, Winthrop. Who would he be? Definitely one of the kittens. Maybe. Oh, shoot. Why can't I remember his name now? Wait, who's the. Oh, no.
So the kittens that.
The black and white one.
So there's Temple Brutus, there's
Not Temple
Alonzo,
Brutus.
there's.
Not Alonzo. The younger. Even younger.
I know. Now I'm drawing a blank on who you're.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, hold on. We can
The
look
one
it
that
up.
Sherrod played. I think of his name.
Pouncival.
Pouncival. Maybe he's a Pouncival.
Okay.
Because actually, doesn't Pouncival, at least in our production, I feel like Pouncival and like Jenny at least had some sort of like motherly son connection.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, but that's her brother. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. That's a little. Yeah. They're cats.
Some people think that Marion and Winthrop might secretly be her son, but they are brother and sister.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yep.
What about the mom?
Mrs. Peru. Oh my gosh. I could see maybe a Gus.
Okay. Yeah. That fits. That definitely fits.
Yeah.
I was see one
Maybe
more.
a Jenny, but
What about the mayor?
the mayor, Bustifer Jones.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
maybe Old Deuteronomy. Maybe. Oh. I'd like the quirkiness of Bustifer for him, but I think maybe like leader part, it would be Old Deuteronomy.
Yeah. Who else am I not thinking of from the show that you
Okay.
definitely know the cat?
I was thinking for Tommy G-List, probably McCavity.
Okay.
But the thing is, he eventually, we love him. So maybe he has a little Grisabella in him.
Yeah. Okay. True.
And we accept him at the end.
Very true.
Who else? I guess Zanita could probably be Victoria. I feel like the quartet would be kind of a mix of Skimbleshanks. Who else? Yeah. I feel like they have the vibe of Skimble.
Yeah. Did you do this when you were doing Music Man? Did you think about this?
I didn't. This is
No.
the
Okay.
first time I'm thinking of it. Actually, Marion might have some bomb ballerina in her too.
Oh, definitely.
Once she starts to, accept Harold a little bit more.
Yeah.
We start to see more of the seductive side of her.
Mhm.
Tommy also might have some carbuckety. He's a little rambunctious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot. Yeah. There's so many going on.
Because I would put maybe the Pickle Littles, that's definitely a Jenny Annie Dots feel.
Mhm. I don't know the Music Man well enough to be able to do this fully with you. I know. I know the five main characters. I saw it a year ago or whatever it was at this point. And I just remember I was like, oh, that's why I know that Gary Indiana song.
Yes. It's so sweet.
Being from Indiana, I was like, yeah, I remember that song a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, this is fun. Let's do some rapid fire about cats, and then
Okay.
Let me ask you this. What did you want me to answer before we go to the rapid fire?
Oh, yeah. I had a question about this. So, if you don't think Grisabella was the one to die or to go to the Heaviside Layer, do you think she still would sing Memory?
Yes. Okay. I want to hold on. I want to come back to that.
Heartbreaking. Okay.
Wait, I want to come back to that. I will answer that question after you answer your joker choice, and I will. So we will put that on hold, and we will come back to that. So
Great.
Yes, I
have another question too.
Okay.
And also, what do you think would happen to her if no one touched her as well? What if Victoria?
Okay. We're
never
gonna come back
came?
to this whole thing.
Okay.
Because I want you to answer my final question first, and then I will give you my thought
Okay.
there.
We're going to take a quick break and then we'll be back for more of The Wrong Cat Died.
Let's talk a little bit about SPAMALOT. I am very excited for this production, and I'm excited to hear that you're in it. So tell us, I know, we're recording this before, you fully are in previews or everything else, even though we're releasing the episode around then. So tell us, what are you excited about? What can people expect? Tell us about the show.
Yeah. So the crazy part about this is that we actually started at the Kennedy Center in DC, and that's all we were going to do. It was 1 week of performances, but oh my gosh, this cast is phenomenal. Honestly, one of the best casts I have ever worked with. And I'm so excited that we get to do it together again because we're on Broadway. We're going to Broadway. How crazy that 1 week run at DC was sold out. And gosh, and the way that the audience ate that up, you have to come and see it because the best part about it is that it is so laugh out loud funny. And that was like the first thing my boyfriend said to me. He was like, I haven't laughed out loud that long or the longest time. It was so fantastic. So if you need a good laugh, that's the one.
I can't wait. We'll put a link in the description for everyone that can buy tickets and go see it. And it's at the St. James.
St. James
and yeah, that's so exciting. So fun. And, maybe we'll have you back to do which cat is which character. After
oh, yes, for SPAMALOT.
See it. For SPAMALOT, but I have not had a chance to see it. So that'll
so
be,
good.
I can't wait. There's a lot of buzz about the production. So by the time this comes out, there'll be some previews already out and people will get to see it. And so if you're in New York, go get your tickets. All right. So let's pivot real quick to a couple of the rapid fire. If you could go on for one track, one night, Cats, doesn't matter male, female, just if you could go on and be one cat, who would you want to go on as?
Oh, Bomb Ballerina or Demeter. Oh, either one.
Either one. Just sing the cavity.
Yep.
Have a blast.
Yep.
Favorite and least favorite cat. Like if you were going to be friends with them, which characters would bug you and which characters would you love hanging out with?
Oh my gosh. I love Victoria. I love Skimbleshanks. Oh, Skimbleshanks actually would be another cat I would love to go on for. The Cavity, I have a love-hate with him because obviously I love that song so much, but it's him. We can't.
Yeah.
Carbuckety gets a little like, ugh. Okay, chill, calm down. And also a little bit, sometimes a tumble Brutus too, where it's like, do you really have to do that everywhere you go?
Yeah.
You have to tumble everywhere?
Love it. Love it. Favorite song from the show?
Oh, favorite song. Oh, I think the opening. I know we were talking about McCavity, but I think the opening.
Mm-hmm. So, you were in the Winter Garden and you kind of have that like kind of weirdness of the Winter Garden. So when, which cat do you think would be the best at like running the Winter Garden? Like who would be the best to like run the stage?
To run it all?
Like if they're behind the scenes running the show, like which character is going to be able to do that best?
I think Skimble would definitely be like the stage manager.
Yeah.
I think Gus would probably be like on the creative team.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. He's got years worth of experience. He knows it all. Okay. Now I will answer your questions after, but before we do that, I've argued at length. I don't think it should be Grisabella.
Okay.
So if you, Maria, you are making the joyful choice tonight, you can pick anybody for any reason and why. Who are you picking and what's your rationale?
Oh man, I think I have to stick with Grisabella just because of the structure of the show.
Okay.
Just because she sings Memory, and oh my God, how heartbreaking would that be if she wasn't picked after singing that?
So let me now answer your question.
Okay.
Which will come to why I don't think she should be picked.
Okay.
And so a big reason I don't think she should be picked is I think that the redemption, the structure of the story and the redemption and the arc all make sense to me. No doubt. But why murder her right after that? Like make her next year's choice. So to your first question, yes, sing Memory.
Yeah.
Be touched and be accepted back by your family and spend the year with them. Go to some birthday parties, have a Thanksgiving, or I guess they're British. So, have a meal or two, like spend time. This family that banished you has finally welcomed you back. And it's like, the only argument against that is that she's not going to live for another year. But I'm like, I want her to spend the year with her family.
But isn't or at least what they've been told, isn't the Heaviside layer like the best thing?
I mean, we don't know. We started with that question,
I know.
Right? Like, we're not sure. You're believing. It is very cultish. You are believing in the cult and your leader
I listen to those podcasts. I listen to cult podcasts. So
yeah. Yeah, this is literally just one of them. I'm just in a very narrow lane of a cult podcast here.
Because also, do you think it's because the Cats have like now they finally learned the lesson of accepting and forgiving. So they're like, maybe the leaders, maybe old Deuteronomy's like, okay, they finally learned this lesson, so now we can get rid of Grisabella.
But I think you can learn the lesson and still, she can be next year's choice.
But maybe they got another lesson for next year.
That's true. I think that goes to a very important question is the criteria change every year? How does he make the decision every year? We have one opportunity to look at. Like, we only get this example of the ball.
Yeah.
So, like, is there always, like, that was my other kind of Grisabella post argument, is if you have to do this redemption story, like, is there another banished cat that's coming back next year? Like, that we don't know about?
No. Oh, no, we can't. Well, oh my God. Could you imagine if, like, McCavity was next year's choice?
When's Gus go?
I think Gus still has like 2 years, maybe.
2 years. Wow. You've got a lot of faith in Gus.
It's pushing it.
Okay.
But I will say, so I should admit, finally, I watched I didn't watch the VHS. I watched it on YouTube.
Yeah.
But I watched that production from beginning to end last night because I needed a refresh for today.
And that Gus did not have 2 years left.
He did not.
Yeah. That Gus was John Mills, I believe, very famous actor, and was blind. I read. So that's why he didn't dance or do anything. They like had to. That's why when he's walked out with Jelly, it's because he was, I think, fully blind when they recorded that. At least that's something that I'd read somewhere, and I have no idea if it's true.
Gosh.
So I don't think that Gus had 2 years left. I don't think he lived that much longer after that.
My gosh, I'll have to ask Michael Gerber.
Yeah,
sure or not.
So okay, so you're sticking with Grizz. Your other,
I think I do.
I mean, my goal is to just change people's mind here. So I'll keep your vote as Grizz because I know you've done this. I will say the original joke of this podcast was Leona Lewis, and I thought I watched the X Factor, so I wanted Tugger and Mistopheles to go together as like a One Direction.
Oh, okay.
That was that's my Harry Styles and whoever that they pieced together in X Factor.
Yep.
But I also think there's a version of like, it is kind of chorus line-ish. It is kind of an opportunity where, why can't we do a let the audience vote or a different cat every night version, which I know has been done in chorus line.
It has been done. It's not set to be done that way, I should say, but it has been done. And oh my gosh, well, that would change a lot, wouldn't it?
I think
that would be really kind of fun. It'd keep people on their toes.
I keep saying this now. Yeah, toes. Exactly. I keep saying this now because I'm trying slowly to convince somebody to do it. That's why I keep saying it every episode. Being like, if enough people hear this, maybe.
Well, aren't they doing a new version of Cats?
They're doing Ballroom Cats at
the,
next year at the PAC, which is a brand new theater by the World Trade Center. But it's a very different interpretation. Like it's not it's not Cats. Like it's Cats in a sense, but it's going to be very different. So I'm very excited to see it.
That could be an option.
But I'm not even sure. Like I don't know. It seems like it's straying a lot. Like I don't think it's the same story. Okay. So I'm not even sure that there's going to be a Jellicle choice type of thing.
Maybe there's no Grizz.
I'm very curious. They did a reading last year, and I think it's the last thing on their season, and so it'll be next year. And I can't wait. I've already talked to the team. I'm so excited to like see it. And like I think they just opened when we record this. They opened like last week.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait.
Yeah, so there's versions, I know, but I'm like, I need this regionally. I need this in like some theater where they're going to put it up for like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's where we can do it. That's where I want to tinker with the Jellicle choice.
The technical element behind that is that they would, especially looking from like a dance captain point of view, is that everyone would definitely have to know and practice the exit for Grisabella, depending on how they do it. If they because we flew her out.
Yeah.
So everyone, and I don't know if you would then have to change the harness for every person that was being selected. So I will say the technical element of that could be tricky.
It's solvable. It's solvable.
You could also just have her walk out.
Yeah, just walk off stage.
Just have her walk off.
I don't think you change. To me, you don't change anything else in the show. Except for when she finishes memory and you do the receiving line, you maybe add that moment there.
Yep.
where either Old Deuteronomy picks or the audience picks or some version, and then that person goes. I like it, especially if you did a tour or a regional production, because then it's like, whose family showed up the loudest
Right,
today? You
yeah.
know, like my whole dance class from growing up is all here. Like we're gonna send a Tantomile tonight who's never
Yeah.
else in the never in the running any other time.
Well, so then do you think Tantomile and Choreocat go together, or do you think they can go separately?
I think that would be hard for the two of them to go separately, but I don't know. There's not a lot of rules.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just sending somebody back. We're currently sending somebody who was banished from our tribe that
Yeah.
we're welcoming back. Like, we can't send two up together.
So how do you think the audience votes? Is it like by ballot or just like raise of hands?
I mean, we're in 2023. Like, we all have a
just
phone.
say
We all
your
have a
own.
phone in our pocket. Like, it wouldn't be that hard to set this up. It's there's an expense if you want to do it, but like don't
Don't they do that on the Masked
They do
Singer
it.
or something?
they
where
do it
it's
in a
like-
bunch of shows. Yeah, they have
Yeah.
like a little button at the seat. So I'm not sure that that's quite ready, but you could do something like that, or you could just do by applause, or you could really just let Old Deuteronomy pick differently every night
That's true. Yeah.
and have that one performer or one person make the call. Or we could really do it with a Tugger style, which is like point out one audience member
And have them
and have them select.
Oh, wow. Putting them on the spot. How
Yeah.
many do you think people would pick Grisabella?
I think Grisbo would get a lot of votes.
Okay.
I do think, I mean, I can tell you as of recording this today,
But do you think that's just because people are already swayed to go that way just because it's set? Or if you have the option, do you think people are like, well, I've seen Grizz go. I want to see somebody else?
I think it depends on how deep the fandom is. I think that
Okay.
when you start talking to like the super fans,
Yeah.
they have an opinion, and it's either a Grisabella opinion or it's usually a Gus opinion, but like they have a no, this is the choice. I think if you just have someone who's never seen it,
Right?
then there might be I really like that number, or I really enjoyed that piece. Like when I walked out of the theater, the only thing I really remembered was Mungo, Jerry, and Rump teaser.
Oh, nice.
I was
Oh
like,
my
that was stuck
gosh.
in my head for like a week after the first time
But
I saw it.
how sad for a kid to go or like younger cats to go.
It depends on what it is.
Yeah.
It
Depends
could
on
be,
how they
they
set
could
that.
be reborn
Mhm.
right back and be very similar to what they were before because they were already a kitten. There's no rules.
No rules.
And I'm slowly trying to influence and change. I think, you added a Grisabella vote. I had a good little run here of Gus's. But
Yep.
you added a Grisabella vote back. So she has less than half the votes though. Of every guest I've had on, I ask every single person, and she is less
Interesting.
than half.
Interesting. So who is like the one that surprised you the most?
There's been some funny answers. I think there's every once in a while someone just defends their cat, which is always fun.
Yeah.
Which I get. But
Yeah,
there's
maybe
been
being a
couple-
swing, it's easier to
Yeah, it's a little. Yeah, you have. There's a few of like who's the biggest. It goes back to criteria. Who's the biggest strain on society?
right?
So that could be Buster Jones. That was one answer,
Okay.
which made me really laugh.
Mhm.
There has been a lot of Old Deuteronomy. Is it his turn? Like, why has he not been
No.
picked yet?
Well,
Like
and then what?
Monk.
Is
Monk
is
takes
strapped
over, right?
the
Yeah.
next, right?
So there's a lot of
Right.
different answers. I think right now I have.
Do you think he has to hand off his you are now the leader before he goes to the
I
heavy
don't
side?
know. It's not happened, but
And think of how Tugger's going to take that.
yeah. So I have 19 different answers from the people on the
Nice.
show. Most of the ones that are like one or two are kind of jokes. It's like somebody
Yeah.
who is like trying to be comical about it. But it is almost half Grisabella and then a 40-something% Gus, and then one or two are here for the rest.
Wow. Gus and Grizz.
Yeah.
But
And I'm
so
not sure
why-
anybody thought about it though until
So
I
if
started
we-
asking the question.
Yeah. But if we can send Tantomile and Choreocat together, why not Gus and Grizz together?
So that's an interesting
why couldn't we
question.
have
Why
had
can't we have two? Yeah. So that I'd be fine with. Let's have a couple of choices. That goes back to the
Yeah.
One Direction version, which is like,
Right.
we don't need solo acts. We're going to create some groups because the
Yeah.
X Factor's done that a lot, very
Yeah.
successfully. And that was literally the genesis of this whole thing because that was my first introduction was Leona and I thought X Factor.
Yeah. You know,
I thought X Factor on
that's
drugs.
my answer.
Really?
That's going to be my answer, actually.
You're going to send both
It shouldn't
together.
just be one person.
Both together. Yeah, just sacrifice them all.
We should
Let's
change the rules of that. It's
send
not just
send
one
like
Jolly
5
Call.
or 6 of them together.
Yeah.
Let's just send them all, and then
Maybe
next
it's like
year.
2 this year. Maybe we get 4 the next year. Maybe it's just one year.
You've got an argument. Why just one?
Yeah, why just one?
So, this has been super fun. How can
Yeah.
people stay in touch with you, find you on social media, see what you're doing?
I am on Instagram at Maria R. Briggs.
All right. We will link that and give a follow. And this was so much fun. Thank you for coming
much
on
fun.
and chatting through. And
Gosh,
having
it
a
makes my
blast.
heart so happy because again, like CATS kind of left for a second because I was so busy with other shows. So it's so nice to revisit again and just to remember how much I love it.
That's awesome. I love being able to let you live these memories again. And
Yes.
I'm sure
Let
Claire's
the
proud of
memory
you.
live again. Yes, exactly.
I'm sure
Exactly.
Claire's very proud of you of all from that day one
I'll
in the
carry
studio with her. She now gets to listen to this and know that she's influenced
it.
your
Absolutely.
opinion. So
Absolutely.
awesome. Well, thank you. And thanks everyone else for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the CATS Catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any else listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, thewrongcatdied.com.